What if I told you that Marvel's next great saga after Secret Wars isn't the Mutant Saga, and that Black Panther 3 might be the film that launches it, featuring dinosaurs, an alien invasion, and Marvel's own version of Tarzan? That's not a fever dream. That's what's being discussed in Marvel's development rooms right now. But before we get there, we've got a reliable insider who just clarified the roles of nearly every major character in Avengers Doomsday, and some of it is genuinely surprising. Let's get into all of it. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Avengers Protocol. Today we're connecting a bunch of dots that I think form a much clearer picture of where the MCU is heading, not just through Doomsday and Secret Wars, but for the entire post-reboot era. We've got role confirmations for Doomsday, a fascinating theory about Loki's place in the story, the future of the Avengers brand itself, and then a Black Panther 3 rumor that the more you think about it, the more sense it makes. Let's go. The source, why this intel is worth your attention. The primary source for today's character breakdown is journalist Alex Perez, writing for the Cosmic Circles website. I've covered his work before, and I want to be clear about why I give him more credit than the average internet leaker. He's been embedded in Hollywood industry coverage for a long time. He has verifiable contacts in production circles, and his track record of accuracy is meaningfully better than the noise you typically find on social media. He's not a random anonymous account. He's a journalist with a reputation on the line. With that context established, let's get into what he's saying about Doomsday.
Doomsday character roles. Confirmed breakdown. Doctor Strange and Clea, investigating the incursions. According to Perez, Doctor Strange will have a critically important role in Doomsday. Specifically, he and Clea, who appeared in the post-credits scene of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, will be actively investigating the incursions, the catastrophic collisions between universes that have been building as a threat across multiple MCU projects. Strange is positioned as the character who understands the scope of what's happening, even as other heroes are reacting to individual crises. This makes complete narrative sense. Strange is the MCU's foremost expert on multiversal mechanics. If universes are collapsing into each other, he's the one who would detect it earliest, understand it best, and be most desperate to stop it. Clea, coming from the dark dimension, adds a layer of mystical knowledge that even Strange doesn't have on his own. This duo functioning as the film's cosmic investigators is an elegant way to give Strange a purpose that isn't just Magic Man shows up and helps. The Sentry, trying very hard not to explode. Bob Reynolds, the Sentry, introduced in Thunderbolts, will apparently spend a significant portion of Doomsday trying to maintain control of himself, keeping calm, staying regulated. The post-credit scene of Thunderbolts already showed us that Bob is aware of what he's capable of, and apparently that awareness is going to be a source of tension throughout Doomsday. But, and here's the part everyone knew was coming, he eventually loses that control. The trigger, according to Perez, is seeing someone he cares about in danger. Specifically, that person appears to be someone close to him. And when that line is crossed, the full, terrifying power of the Sentry is unleashed. This is exactly the right dramatic structure for this character. The Sentry is one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. Superman-level strength, reality-warping energy projection, and the unhinged alter ego of the Void lurking underneath. Having him spend most of the film as a ticking bomb before he finally goes off is smart storytelling. It builds dread, it pays off, and it turns what could have been just another big punch into an emotionally earned moment. Steve Rogers being hunted by Dr. Doom. Steve Rogers is confirmed to have a significant role, and it's not a comfortable one. According to Perez, Dr. Doom is actively hunting Steve Rogers throughout Doomsday. We've covered the theory behind this before. The prevailing rumor is that Steve's decision to travel back in time and live out his life with Peggy in an alternate timeline inadvertently destabilized the multiverse. His presence in a universe where he didn't belong, the same universe that may have housed the Fantastic Four, caused ripple effects that contributed to the incursion crisis. In Doom's eyes, Steve Rogers is either a primary cause of the multiversal collapse or, at minimum, a symbol of the recklessness that brought them to this point. The dramatic irony is rich. In Endgame, the character now played by RDJ was Tony Stark, Steve's greatest ally, the man who sacrificed himself to save the universe. Now, that same actor returns as Doctor Doom, hunting Steve with a vendetta. One film ends with Tony dying for Steve's world. The next begins with Doom trying to destroy him for breaking it. That's not coincidence. That's a carefully constructed narrative circle. Shuri and Namor, recruiting and fighting. Shuri will be actively working to assemble allies, recruiting people and nations for the coming fight against Doom. Namor, meanwhile, is confirmed to be fighting directly against Doom. Given that Namor is a mutant, immensely powerful, and has his own complicated relationship with surface world politics, his willingness to enter the conflict at all speaks to the scale of the threat. Doom must be doing something that even Namor can't rationalize staying neutral about. Bucky Barnes, the connective tissue. Here's one of the most interesting character confirmations. Bucky Barnes is positioned as the bridge between the two Avengers teams. On one side, you have Sam Wilson's Avengers, the official team being assembled under the new Captain America. On the other, you have the Thunderbolts turned new Avengers, the group of morally complicated operatives that came together in that film. Bucky belongs in both worlds. He has history with Sam Wilson going back to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He has history with the darker, grimier world of black ops and government-sponsored wet work that the Thunderbolts inhabit. He's the one character who can walk between those two different groups of heroes without it feeling forced. Making him the connective tissue between two very different groups of heroes is exactly the right use of his character at this point in the MCU.
Now here's where things get philosophically interesting. According to Perez, Loki's role in Doomsday will be analogous to the Beyonders in the comics, specifically the 2015 Secret Wars storyline. Let me explain why that comparison matters, because it has massive implications. In the comics, the Beyonders are a race of beings who exist outside the multiverse, literally beyond the boundaries of existence as Marvel defines it. They were responsible for the multiversal collapse in 2015's Secret Wars, not through active malice in the traditional sense, but because they simply decided the multiverse was no longer worth maintaining. They grew tired of it, and so they began systematically destroying everything. The Beyonders weren't villains in the conventional sense. They weren't conquering, they weren't angry. They were beings of incomprehensible power who had simply lost interest in the existence of everything below their level of existence. Now, remember how the Loki series ended. Loki sits on the throne at the end of time, at the center of all branching realities, holding the TVA's sacred timeline together through sheer will. He literally became the god of stories, the guardian of the multiverse's narrative continuity. What if that position, holding everything together forever alone, eventually breaks him? What if Loki, sitting at the nexus of infinite stories for an incalculable amount of time, simply reaches a point of exhaustion? What if he decides, consciously or unconsciously, that the easiest solution to the chaos of infinite branching timelines is to let them collapse? If Loki is functioning as the Beyonders, the entity whose choices or inactions are enabling the multiversal collapse, then he isn't just a supporting character in Doomsday. He's potentially its hidden true villain. Not Doctor Doom, not the incursions. Loki, tired and broken at the center of everything, quietly allowing the end to come. That would be one of the most emotionally devastating twists the MCU has ever attempted, and it would give Tom Hiddleston a final performance worthy of everything he's built over 15 years. If this breakdown is hitting right, and I know it is, please hit that like button right now. Every like genuinely helps this content reach more Marvel fans who want this level of analysis. It costs you nothing, and it means everything. Tap it. There's another character confirmation worth highlighting. Haley Atwell, who plays Peggy Carter, is reportedly confirmed for Doomsday, and she won't just be sitting at home while Steve gets hunted by Doom. She will apparently have an active combat role. This is significant for a few reasons.
First, it strongly implies she may once again suit up as Captain Carter, the super soldier version of Peggy who appeared in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and in the What If animated series. Second, there are older rumors suggesting Haley Atwell might be playing more than one character, potentially multiple variants of Peggy across different realities. In a film built around multiversal collapse, that kind of dual or triple role isn't just possible, it's thematically fitting. Deadpool, the multiverse's tour guide of destruction. Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is confirmed for Doomsday, and according to Paris, his role isn't just comic relief. Deadpool's function in the story will apparently be to show audiences the effects of incursions happening across the multiverse, universes colliding, realities being destroyed, worlds disappearing. He's the POV character for the scale of the catastrophe. This is actually a smart narrative device. Deadpool already has a meta-awareness of alternate realities from Deadpool and Wolverine, where he encountered characters displaced from destroyed universes in the void. He knows what it looks like when a universe ends. Using him to walk the audience through the scope of the incursion crisis, probably with characteristic irreverence that nonetheless underscores the genuine horror of what's happening, is an elegant solution to what could otherwise be an overwhelming amount of exposition. No official Avengers team, and why that's actually good. Here's a detail that surprised me. According to Paris, there is currently no established official Avengers team in the MCU. At the time Doomsday begins, the team hasn't been formally reassembled. Yes, Sam Wilson expressed a desire to rebuild the Avengers at the end of Captain America: Brave New World, but that desire didn't translate to an actual functioning team before Doomsday begins. And it sounds like, rather than walking into the film with a fully formed roster, part of Doomsday's story will be the formation of that team happening in real time, under pressure, during the crisis itself. Think about why that's compelling. The original Avengers film worked so well partly because it was a team formation story. We knew each character individually, we'd seen their solo films, and then we watched them clash, resist working together, and finally find their reason to unite. The tension before the unity was what made the unity feel earned. Doomsday appears to be attempting something similar at a vastly larger scale. Dozens of heroes who have never all been in a room together, thrown into a world-ending crisis, forced to figure out whether and how they can function as a unit. That's dramatically rich territory, and it sets up Secret Wars, where presumably that team is fully operational as the payoff to the setup. It also means that by the end of Doomsday, we'll know exactly who the new Avengers are. That formation moment will be earned, not assumed.
Two characters apparently won't be active during Doomsday's events: War Machine, James Rhodes, and Hawkeye, Clint Barton. Rhodes' situation is complicated by the Secret Invasion series, where it was revealed he'd been replaced by a Skrull for an indeterminate period. The show was poorly received, but the in-universe consequences remain. Rhodes has been through something deeply destabilizing, and it makes sense that he'd be on the sidelines during this particular crisis, still dealing with the fallout of having his identity and agency stripped from him. Clint Barton, meanwhile, appears to have retired after the events of his solo series, retreating to farm life with his family. And actually, this is thematically appropriate. Clint has been fighting for decades. He earned his exit. And his stepping back creates narrative space for Kate Bishop to step forward as the next generation's Hawkeye. That's good franchise planning, honoring the legacy while clearing the lane for someone new. One of the most interesting pieces of intel from Perez isn't about a specific character, it's about Marvel's structural plans for the Avengers franchise going forward. According to his reporting, Avengers: Secret Wars will not be the last Avengers film. Marvel has no intention of retiring the brand. But, and this is significant, they want to fundamentally change what an Avengers film means. Since Infinity War, every Avengers film has been a universe-ending mega-event. The entire MCU converges, every hero shows up, and existence itself is at stake. That's an extraordinary thing to pull off once or twice, but as a permanent formula, it becomes exhausting. You can't escalate beyond the entire multiverse is being destroyed, you've maxed out the stakes. Marvel's plan, according to Perez, is to return to a more comics-accurate model,
Avengers films as focused team missions, a specific lineup of heroes, a specific threat, a story with defined parameters. Not every character Marvel has ever introduced, just the Avengers. This particular iteration of the team doing what teams do, on a manageable, story-driven scale. Think about the original 2 Avengers films. The first was about 6 heroes dealing with an alien invasion. The second was about the same team, plus a few additions, dealing with an AI they accidentally created. Finite stories, clear stakes, specific rosters. Those films worked precisely because they had shape and limits. Post-Secret Wars, Marvel apparently wants to get back to that. Avengers films as exciting, well-crafted team adventures, not as franchise-wide apocalyptic events. And in a world where X-Men films are also in production simultaneously, having 2 separate team franchises running in parallel, each with their own flavor, their own roster, and their own scale, is actually a very healthy content strategy.
Here's where I need to revise something. I've speculated before, and I wasn't alone, that the next major MCU saga after the multiverse saga would be the mutant saga. Mutants dominating the post-Secret Wars landscape with the X-Men as the new centerpiece franchise. Perez is reporting that while mutants will absolutely be a major part of the post-reboot MCU, the overarching narrative thread connecting the next saga of films won't be mutant-focused. It will be cosmic. Marvel is apparently considering 2 directions, both rooted in classic comic storylines. Option 1. Judgment Day. The first direction is inspired by the AXE Judgment Day crossover from the comics, a story where the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Eternals are all in conflict with each other simultaneously. It's a cosmic-scale conflict that draws in all 3 major superhero factions and forces them into collision. The Eternals are an important variable here. They had a theatrical release in 2021 that performed below expectations and left a lot of unresolved story threads dangling. Those characters were entirely absent from both Infinity War and Endgame and haven't appeared since their own film. Their story genuinely needs to be continued, and a Judgment Day-inspired saga would be the perfect vehicle. Pitting the Eternals against the Avengers and X-Men simultaneously in a conflict with cosmic stakes would resolve those dangling threads, while also giving audiences the mega crossover they've been wanting since the Eternals were first introduced. Imagine Avengers films, X-Men films, and Eternals content all building toward a single massive convergence. That is the kind of interconnected storytelling Marvel did at its best during the Infinity Saga. Option 2. Annihilation. The second direction is the Annihilation arc, a massive invasive alien story where a massive army of insectoid aliens from the negative zone, led by Annihilus, tears through the universe in a campaign of total destruction. Annihilation in the comics is directly tied to the hero Nova, Richard Rider, the human who becomes the last surviving Nova Corps member and leads the resistance against the invasion. It also heavily involves the Fantastic Four, given their historical connection to the negative zone. And it's a more streamlined, action-driven story than Judgment Day, a cosmic threat, a desperate defense, heroes being pushed to their absolute limits. Honestly, these 2 directions aren't mutually exclusive. Marvel could plant Annihilation seeds during X-Men and Avengers films, use that external threat to force the teams into cooperation, and then bring the Eternals back into the picture as a third faction with their own agenda. The resulting story would be the largest and most ambitious thing Marvel has ever attempted, bigger than the Infinity Saga, more narratively complex, with more moving pieces than any crossover event in superhero film history.
Now let's bring this all together with the Black Panther 3 news, because this is where the cosmic thread and the terrestrial MCU meet in the most unexpected and delightful way possible. The film is currently in pre-production, with the title reportedly being tested Black Panther 3: Shadows of Wakanda. Director Ryan Coogler is actively developing it and has publicly expressed excitement about the project. He's reportedly writing a specific role for Denzel Washington, which alone suggests this is going to be a prestige MCU production with serious dramatic ambitions. The film is expected to be officially announced at CinemaCon 2026, and it would likely fill one of those reserved 2028 or 2029 release slots we discussed previously.
Now, according to insider James Mack, lower reliability than Paris, but worth discussing because of how it connects to the cosmic saga plans, Black Panther 3 involves an alien invasion of Wakanda and the introduction of the Savage Land, along with a character called Khazar. Let's unpack that. First, if Shuri is currently the Black Panther, what does T'Challa mean in the context of this film? Almost certainly, this refers to T'Challa Jr., the young son of the original T'Challa, who appeared in the post-credit scene of Wakanda Forever. He was named after his father. He grew up in secret, and in the comics, T'Challa's legacy is eventually carried forward by the next generation. This film would likely mark the moment that young T'Challa steps into the mantle, representing not just the continuation of the Panther legacy, but a genuine generational handover. Shuri passes the torch. A boy who never knew his father fully becomes him. That's a powerful emotional story on its own. But then you had the Savage Land. The Savage Land is a hidden prehistoric ecosystem in Marvel Comics. Located in Antarctica, it's a place where dinosaurs still roam, where ancient civilizations survived, where evolution took completely different paths than the rest of Earth. Think of the Hollow Earth concept from the Godzilla vs. Kong monsterverse, that same idea of a lost world beneath the surface, teeming with life that shouldn't exist anymore. And Khazar, the character this young T'Challa would encounter there, is exactly what you think he is, Marvel's Tarzan. A human being raised in the Savage Land, bonded with a saber-toothed tiger named Zabu, who fights dinosaurs for fun and has the physique of someone who has literally never stopped exercising since birth. Khazar is ridiculous and magnificent in equal measure. Now, connect the dots. An alien invasion arriving at Wakanda, which seeds the cosmic threat that will define the next Marvel saga, a young, new Black Panther stepping up for the first time, a journey to a hidden world beneath the ice, dinosaurs, saber-toothed tigers, and Denzel Washington in whatever role Ryan Coogler has designed specifically for him. I want you to think about the commercial logic here for just a moment. The Jurassic World franchise is one of the most reliable box office engines on the planet. Those films are not, let's be honest, masterpieces of cinema. They're entertaining, fun, crowd-pleasing dinosaur movies, and they make enormous amounts of money. The audience appetite for seeing large prehistoric creatures on screen is essentially bottomless. Now combine that appetite with the Marvel brand, with the Black Panther franchise, which has demonstrated it can reach audiences well beyond the typical superhero demographic, with a coming-of-age story about a new hero, with cosmic stakes that connect to the larger MCU, and with dinosaurs. That is a billion-dollar film concept. Disney and Marvel would have every reason in the world to be excited about this. So, let's zoom out and look at the full picture that today's intel paints. Doomsday is a precisely engineered ensemble story. Strange investigating, Sentry barely containing himself, Doom hunting Rogers, Shuri recruiting, Namor fighting, Bucky bridging two teams, Loki potentially being the hidden engine of the entire catastrophe, and a new Avengers lineup forming under fire, rather than being handed to us pre-assembled. After Secret Wars, Marvel is not retiring. They're restructuring. Avengers becomes a team adventure franchise again. X-Men launches as a parallel team franchise, and the overarching saga that connects them both will be cosmic, likely involving the Eternals, possibly facing the threat of annihilation, potentially culminating in a conflict that makes Infinity War look modestly scaled. And somewhere in the middle of all that, a young Black Panther traveling to a hidden world full of dinosaurs, planting the seeds of the alien threat that will eventually engulf the entire MCU. I am completely here for all of this. Drop Panther Dinosaur in the comments if you made it to the end. I want to see who's as excited about this as I am. And please hit that like button. I put serious work into connecting these pieces, and every like helps get this analysis in front of more people who care about this stuff. It takes 1 second. Don't skip it. More videos right on your screen to keep the deep dive going. This is Avengers Protocol signing out.